we're facing a major environmental crisis, and we've way overshot the limits to the physical growth of the economy. The only real solution is not economic growth, but economic degrowth to a smaller economy. What this means is, in effect, simple living. Many people have advocated simple living for reasons of personal fulfillment or as a more satisfactory lifestyle, but what we're looking for is simple living on a massive scale. Because of the infrastructure we're caught in, it's almost impossible to live a truly simple lifestyle in the United States. What we really want to do is to change the infrastructure of the whole country. Yes, we need cultural support for this change, but in order to actually get there, we're going to need political changes as well. Well, what kinds of political changes do we need? Well, lucky for us, ecological economists have been working on this for the last 50 years. Ecological economists are a small minority of the total class of economists, and economists generally are clueless about the environment, but ecological economists are different. They acknowledge that there is such a thing as a planet and that our economy is part of a larger environment. Ecological economists include such people as Herman Daly, Kate Raworth, and Robert Goodland. Probably the best known ecological economist is Kate Raworth because of her book published in 2017, Donut Economics. Donut Economics maintains that not only do we have a maximum size for the economy because of ecological constraints, we also have a minimum size of the economy. The economy needs to be a certain size in order to provide for everyone and to provide the basics of social and economic justice. She illustrates all this with a diagram that looks like a donut. If the economy is too big, then it's unsustainable, and we run into all the problems of ecological overshoot, like global warming, mass extinctions, and so forth. But if it's not big enough, then the people at the bottom of the social order are going to be deprived, and the social system is going to be unsustainable for a different kind of reasons. It's going to be unstable because people at the bottom of the social order will not be happy. If one ring illustrates the maximum limit and a second ring illustrates the minimum limit for social justice, then we want our ideal society to be inside the donut, both ecologically sustainable and providing for everyone as well. Raworth really showed quite a bit of imagination in coming up with this diagram. It's not that other ecological economists hadn't thought about social justice issues before. They had. But what Raworth did is to put both of these concerns both for environmental limits and for social justice, into a single diagram. This draws attention to a key problem with degrowth. This problem doesn't actually directly have anything to do with the environment at all. Why do you think that everybody's concerned about economic growth? Why do you think that, for example, Trump during his campaign could go into West Virginia and crowds would cheer him when he would say we need to have more jobs for coal, we need to have more jobs for coal miners? Do you think it's because they enjoyed mining coal, or they wanted to go deep down underground and breathe all that coal dust and get black lung disease? I don't think so. This is about jobs. This is about economic security. For most people, security means a job, and jobs means economic growth. And so if you're talking about degrowth, then you're talking about fewer jobs, and therefore that means that what's going to happen to us exactly? People become very concerned, and so it doesn't even get into the discussion because of these problems. So viewed from this angle, it looks like degrowth is going to be really a hard sell. But I think that we can look at it from a slightly different angle, and that's the angle of social justice. What has been the traditional method for providing economic and social justice. It's been to expand the economy. Every president from Franklin Roosevelt down to Trump and Biden, they all want to make the economy bigger. They all want to increase the total number of jobs. And the reasons should be fairly obvious. Everybody wants jobs, everybody wants security, and so of course they are going to promote jobs and economic security as part of their political platform. They all want to create jobs and make the economy bigger. But if expanding the economy means destroying the environment, then wait a minute, how are we going to deal with both social justice and the environment? We're getting to the point where expanding the economy because of resource limitations is actually becoming quite difficult. Because of oil problems, oil is getting more and more difficult to get out of the ground. The economy has been stagnant for essentially the past 50 years. There's been some movement in the economy, but most of the movement has been to increase the wealth of the top 1%. There's been no real change in inflation-adjusted wages for the past 50 years. It's barely budged. And even maintaining the economy in this sort of tepid status quo has resulted in tremendous environmental destruction. Global warming gets worse and worse every year. And it's also been accompanied by mountains of debt, both public debt and private debt. Ask any student who's got a student loan, for example. So expanding the economy is not only difficult, it's getting to the point that because of resource limitations, it's getting to the point where it may not be possible at all. And where does this leave our goal of social justice? It means that the old way of bringing about economic justice, namely expanding the economy, isn't going to work. That's the practical implications of limits to growth. The old way of expanding the economy isn't going to work. We're going to have to try something else. The only way we can really get to social justice is the old-fashioned way, the Robin Hood method. You take from the rich and you give to the poor. And that's the basic idea of the universal basic income. The universal basic income isn't quite as dramatic and as rude as Robin Hood, but the end economic effect is about the same. Under a universal basic income, everyone in the country, all adult citizens, would get a basic income. They would get a fixed income of, maybe $1,000 a month, $1,200 a month, $1,500 a month, something to provide enough for subsistence. You wouldn't get rich, but you wouldn't be starving either. You wouldn't need a job. You wouldn't even have to apply for a job in order to receive this income. It would be yours by right as an adult citizen. The next thing that people will probably want to know is, how are you going to pay for this? You're going to send $1,200 a month to everybody? That's a lot of money. Well, indeed, it is a lot of money. The way you would raise this money is by raising taxes. You would raise everyone's taxes. There's various ways you could administer this. You could have a wealth tax. You could have a carbon tax. You could just have a steep progressive income tax. But the net effect of it, however it was administered, would be to lay the burden of this taxation on the wealthy rather than the not so wealthy. So this isn't really a government spending program. It's more an income redistribution program. The people at the very bottom of the social order, the people who had nothing, the people who were destitute, the people who were homeless, they would receive a basic annual income. And indeed, one of the first practical effects of a universal basic income would be that it would end most homelessness. The next step up would be the people who had some income but not very much. they had perhaps low-paying jobs, minimum wage jobs, something like that. And they would get a basic income as well, in addition to whatever salary they were making. And their taxes would go up, but their taxes wouldn't go up as much as the basic income. So in effect, they would come out ahead because their basic income would more than pay for all the increase in taxes. And as income gradually increased, you would eventually reach a point somewhere in the middle where one person's basic income would exactly cancel out all the increase in taxes to pay for the basic income in the first place. So for them, it would be a wash. And then above that level, you would have the upper income levels where people actually would see real increases in taxes. So the end result of a universal basic income would be that money would be shifted from the wealthy to the not so wealthy. It's an income redistribution program. The biggest reason why it's hard to get people interested in degrowth, both culturally and politically, is because of security. You can't get all warm and fuzzy about protecting the earth and the earth's resources if you're just trying to make ends meet. You need to provide security for people in order for a simple lifestyle to be possible. And that's our ultimate objective. We want to make it as easy and convenient as possible to live simply at the lower end of the income spectrum in the country. If the only way we have to address inequality and poverty is through economic growth, this is the path to destruction. This is the path to economic and political collapse. In the first place, we're rapidly reaching the point, if we're not already there already, at which it's not even possible to really increase the economy and make the economy bigger, simply because there's not that much of the environment left to be exploited. And so we've got a problem in terms of creating economic justice. The only real way we have to create economic justice is through income redistribution. Take from the rich and give to the poor. We can't have a situation in which we have to destroy the environment in order to get to social justice. We have to find a different way to address inequality. So that actually may be the key issue on which we will be able to make progress in terms of establishing some sort of cultural beachhead for simple living, is through a universal basic income, which doesn't directly have anything to do with the environment at all. The universal basic income doesn't get us all the way to degrowth, but it does make degrowth and simple living possible. The path to environmental sanity goes to the door of social justice.